trust, it's the foundation of all relationships, or it should be. And I think this weekend, the world saw what trust is really all about when a missing airman behind enemy lines was rescued after almost 3 days. What can you say? Trust. Trust that your fellow men, your colleagues, are going to do what they say they do. Trust that they know how to do what they're called on to do, and trust that regardless of the situation, that it is going to turn out for the best. We're always told to trust in something higher than ourselves, that we can't control everything. And today I have one of my panelists, a colleague, and we're going to talk about trust. What happens with trust? How do we gain trust? How do we lose trust? What happens when trust is broken? And before I let Dr. Jeffrey introduce himself, I am Teresa Palmer, a holistic cardiology nurse practitioner. And what I do is a part of the work that I do with people is about trust, about getting them to trust their intuition, their inner knowing, about getting them to trust that, yes, they can partner and be a part of their health care decisions. So that's part of what I do. I'm also author of the book, Heal Your Heart from Within. And I will now turn it over, and guest hosting. I've been guest hosting for a while. So now I will turn it over, let Dr. Jeffrey introduce himself, who he is, and he could start our conversation.
Thanks, Teresa. And again, thank you for hosting. You're an amazing host, and so appreciative that you're doing this for the group and for MARISSA. I'm Dr. Jeffrey Berger, an honorary doctorate. I am the CEO and founder of Abundance and Optimum Wellness, where I am of the belief that we all should be living in abundance and optimum wellness, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and financially. And I do host my own podcast where I interview people to really provide value to my audience, where I'm sharing tools and resources, allowing people to create that lifestyle, to live in abundance and optimum wellness. And it's great to be here. And you talk about trust. Trust is, I mentioned to you offline about me having some issues with trust over the last month and a half. And I'm actually in the process of writing an article to post in LinkedIn to be transparent. And let me start out with why trust is so hard right now and what really broke it. So people are really carrying quite skepticism about everything, institutions, systems, and even themselves. And there is broken trust in our food systems, healthcare, media, financial systems, and even in our government. And the unfortunate result is that people are becoming hyper independent. They're experiencing anxiety and burnout. And then the deeper truth around that is when trust is broken, externally, people lose trust internally. So there's an internal and an external factor. And the reality is that most people don't have a trust problem. They have a betrayal recovery problem. And this immediately makes, people feel seen. So that's one of the introductions of what I'm sharing, and really breaking that down into more pieces of information. But that's one of the things that I came up really thinking about what I've been going through over the last month and a half. So if you want to start there, let's do it.
We could start there. And Jeffrey, we kind of lost you off the screen.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I don't. There you are. Now I see you. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I really believe that trust is the foundation of all relationships. I think that in order to move forward, you have to trust. And trust is difficult because, like you said, we don't know who and what to trust. And I think some good examples of that are we don't even know with the media who we could trust. And that's sad. I'm dating myself, but I'm going back to Huntley and Brinkley. And Huntley and Brinkley never gave you their opinion about what was going on. And they broadcast in the middle of a war. But what did they do? They told you the information that they could tell you. And that was it. They didn't say, "Oh, by the way, this is not right. That's not right. This isn't so. That's not so." And why don't I just make this up and tell you this is going on? And it
Right.
was probably easier back then to BS people because we didn't have social media and we didn't have
Exactly.
technology. So we had to rely and trust these people to give us accurate information because we had no idea what was going on. How
Right.
would we know that? There was no way. And yet we had this trust. I don't recall the trust really being broken. That I don't really recall. And now we have so much going on, and I think with AI, we don't know who and what to trust, and
Right.
that makes it difficult. And sometimes we use our intuition and we trust. I know I did that. I had a situation where it had to do with my website and I had looked at several different people, and I chose someone who was in my close by where I lived, and it was a beautiful proposal as to what they were gonna do. I met with the person, and it
Mhm.
felt good, and yet the person was a scam artist. They had no intentions of doing the work, they had no intentions of anything, and by the time I figured it out, we were already 6 months into something.
Right. Wow.
So, what do you do? I mean,
Yeah.
I just never dreamed that that was gonna happen, but yet, looking back on it, yeah, there were some red flags. There were red flags when people give you a timeline and then all of a sudden it's, well, my wife has to go here, my wife has to leave the country. She's the one that helps me. I've got a sick mother. I've got this. I've got that. So, looking back on it, yeah, I probably should have been less trustworthy. And sometimes it's worthwhile to be suspicious. We don't always like to talk about suspicion because it makes us look bad. It's like, oh my
Right.
goodness, how could we not be positive and trusting? Well, sometimes I think a healthy dose of suspicion and not trusting people is the way to go. And what do you think about that?
Well, you bring up some really, really great points. I do want to go back to one point you said, you know, uh, like 30, 40 years ago, and watching the news, and about that's what we had to trust. And it's funny you say that because I was thinking about that. I want to say maybe a month, 2 months ago, with the internet, with all that we have today, and with independent reporters, you look at a specific group of, I'll just say it, mainstream media, and they're reporting this. But then you come over to other independent reporters and other channels that are out of the norm, and they're bringing in different facts and different points. So it's like you have to go back and forth and back and forth, and then really look at the true state of affairs. And what are the true state of affairs that are really going on out there? Why are we being told this when this is happening? And that's so my thoughts on that was, okay, were they doing the same thing back then? I don't know, because we didn't have the internet. We had that to believe. So that has brought up, more so, I'm going to say, with regards to government and with medical, these systems that I talked about, the food systems, the healthcare, the media, and the government. What is being really uncovered? So, and the other thing too is that I'll just elaborate on what you shared about your website experience. I've experienced multiple things where I grew up as a baby boomer, to trust everybody. They're not out to harm you. Trust the health system, trust the government, trust the everybody. Well, that you can't trust everybody, and I've come to the point where that I need to be aggressive in my own due diligence and we have to become the CEOs of our life in all aspects, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and financially. And now you know, in the past, I wouldn't step into that uncomfortable zone and ask questions. I would say, okay, believe them, and think that they were telling me the truth. But there's a lot of people out there like your guy who scammed you that are out there trying to make an extra buck. So now I have taken the stance where I'm going out there and just asking question until I am 100% comfortable. Plus, I want references. I want information, because when people say, well, I don't have that, I don't have a website, I do this without a website, that throws a yellow to red flag for me.
Yeah. It's so important to be the CEO of your own life. And
Yeah.
that's some of the work I do with my patients. I always tell them, you know better than even I know what's going on with them, because we all have that inner knowing. It's just that we don't trust it. But you find people that they know when something is wrong. They know it. They may not be able to express it in the terms
Right.
that
Yeah.
professionals do, but they know that something is amiss. And if you work with them, they could help come up with a solution or a
Hmm.
plan
Hmm.
or even a way to deal with it. But we're told to trust others. I
Right.
mean, we're always told that whether it be an organization, whether, any organization, workplaces, anything, religion, we're told to trust other people.
Yeah.
And we do it without question. And, you brought up about if somebody doesn't have a website. Well, I didn't think too much of websites, I'll be honest, because websites sort of lost popularity of
Correct.
past 4 or 5 years, where it wasn't necessary for everybody to have a website because we had so much social media. But then again, if people do take the time to have a website and it doesn't have to be fancy, then those people are committed. So I think it's a level of commitment that
Yeah.
you're really saying, this is who I am, this is what I do. And
Well,
it's
to add to that, sorry to cut you off, but let me add this as well, because we've had discussions about AI, and the reason I say website, and I'm even talking about if they have their own podcast, if they have a YouTube channel, so forth and so on. This allows me. I've learned how to use AI to dig deep and ask the right questions to find out, is there any underlying facts about this particular person, this particular business, that doesn't sit right? That, is there any findings? And AI has been able to do that with some amazing, unfortunately sad results with some of the people that I've been dealing with right now. And it's been a shock, but the reality is there. But that has been a help. So there we've discussed pros and cons on AI, but I found that has been very helpful in some of the research that I've been doing. And I'm at the point where I don't trust anybody that's new, and I want them to really gain my trust. And there's a process that I'm starting to walk through, so I'm comfortable with a new relationship who's reaching out to me wanting to get engaged in a business deal, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, you bring up some good points. And, even though people may have a website, they may have a large YouTube following, they may have a large
Yeah.
Instagram following, you could buy that. So,
Right.
what I look for is the engagement. Because you have 1,000 or 1,000,000 followers, are they engaged? What kind of comments? And when I look at a lot of people that, maybe I choose to follow or I think about following them, and I look at the engagement, it's very, very low. It's
Right.
very, very low.
And this is where I don't like AI. It's AI. If there is an engagement, it's AI generated.
Yeah, there's a lot of AI generated. I still like to go, even though I got scammed meeting a person. And I did, I purposely met this person to make sure that I was picking the right person. So even
Yeah,
that you don't know.
right.
In a way, I was fortunate because the person lived in my neighborhood. Um, but in a way, it still didn't work out, even though I resonated with the person. So I think people could be great imposters, and I think that's what scams are really about. That if you could, you hate to say it, but it's really an art to be
It
able to
is.
scam somebody where they don't know that they're being scammed, and they're they're giving the trust, and the other person is using this trust to only create something of value for themselves. And it's sad, but
Yeah, it
I
is.
think it's difficult for somebody like me who knows AI but doesn't know a lot about AI. I'm getting better with it, but you don't know who to trust. And I
Right.
think you still have to go with your getting your heart and your brain on the same page. That it's some logic, but it's also some intuition. And I think we have to balance that. And a lot of times we're logical and we say, okay, this person has these credentials. But, I just bring up, um, you say you have an honorary doctorate. You're one of the few people that says that. Most people do not say that because they think that just having doctor in front of their name gives them credibility. And
Right.
there was a time when that was true because the only doctors were medical doctors, PhDs,
Right.
doctors of education. But now it's become to the point where, and I hate to say this, but anybody could get an honorary or a doctorate otherwise because there's not the same screening process that there was before. So a
Correct.
lot of times I think these credentials are used to misinform people. Somebody, and I've come across it where somebody's had a website, say on health and health coaching. Well, they're a doctor, but then you find out that if you dig deeper, that it's either an honorary doctorate that has nothing to do with health. It may have something to do
Right.
with economics or something like that. Or you find out that even though they did go to school for the doctorate, it's a doctorate in something like divinity that still has nothing to do with health. So they're misusing those credentials.
Sure.
And I really believe in that case, people shouldn't put the doctor in front of their name. I really believe that if they're a health coach or, something that's not where they got their education from or their honorary, then don't even put it because to me, you're using it to mislead people because you
Right.
want them to
Right.
think a certain way. And, that's being to me just as dishonest as the person that outwardly scams you, that takes your money, that maybe doesn't really build your house, is never seen again. Years ago with Superstorm Sandy, we had a giant oak tree fall on our deck. It missed our house by about a half an inch, which is truly a miracle. So we contacted someone and they came down, looked at us, gave us the insurance price. We had the insurance money. Well, we're waiting. And this person said, oh, I have to wait for a permit from the town. I have to do this. I have to do that. Well, I went to the town and I went to the engineering department and I said, we've been waiting already a month. Already a month. We gave this person, and part of it was our fault. They wanted a third down, and yes, we gave it to them. Okay.
Right.
And we were told that that person never applied for a permit. They didn't know who the person was.
Oh,
It's
jeez.
fortunate, yeah, was fortunate about social media. So what I did was I called the company, and of course it's a mom and pop operation. It's a man
Oh,
and his
wow.
wife.
Yeah.
Wife answers the phone, and I said, I'll smear you all over social media so you have a choice. You could either give the money back because you're not going to do the work, or run the risk of never having anybody believe you about anything again and having the town or us sue you personally for misrepresentation. Well, I have to say, within half an hour, we had a courier with a check with our money back.
Wow.
Went straight to the bank, deposited the check, it cleared. And then I signed what the person had sent, that they didn't want anything said on social media that could undermine them, because they actually were a company.
Hmm.
But again, they were scammers.
Yeah.
And who gives them the right to do this? So if you do your due diligence and you do your work, you find out things,
Right.
and you could kind of cut people off from the past at
Yeah,
the
and
past.
there's so many scammers out there on social media. It's just it's really sick. It's sad to see that these types of people are out there. But you know what? They've been around for centuries, and now with the computers and systems like that, it makes it much easier for them to utilize that and scam people. So uh,
Yeah.
it it's really tough to have that trust anymore. And yeah, I mean, it's and I go back to my story I share about a survivor of childhood molestation, and that is still going on today, but it's more out in the open. And these people, they're groomers. They know how to groom, and they're smart at it. And unfortunately, today there's not enough done to arrest these people. There have been some arrests, but there needs to be more and more exposure around this whole topic. So, but yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and it's sad to see trust is really dwindling down. And I'm finding it more and more over the last I want to say the last 5 to 10 years. It's been really building up, and it's sad to see the direction that it goes. We should be, as I say, live a life of abundance and optimum wellness. We should be working together. We should be supporting everybody, and enjoying our lives with, because we don't have a lot of time on this earth to enjoy it, and to be going back and forth with these things. It's really sad.
Yeah, it's really sad because, I think as human beings, and you even look at animals, animals are trustworthy. They know how to survive because their
Yeah,
antenna is always up.
correct.
But at the same time, they know how to build trust, and they know how to move on if they don't get that trust met. They may not be able to change the situation, but animals have a way of moving on. I think with humans, it's a little bit more difficult. And our
Yeah,
brains too are wired for survival. We still have that survival mode
right.
in our brain
We do.
that, alerts us to danger. I think sometimes we push it down because we don't want to appear like we're being negative. That if we question something, we're not being the so-called good people. We're not
Hmm.
being the
Right.
people that, I think we have a tendency to try to present as, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. I can't say anything against this. Oh my goodness, if I question somebody on that, what are they going to think of me?
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that holds us back a lot of times from not only being ourselves, but from delving into things and perhaps avoiding some of the mistrust. You had some other
Yeah.
points that you wanted to bring up, correct?
Yeah. But let me go back to this. About other people thinking. That was me for decades. What if I say this? What are they going to think about me? And I finally got to the point. I can't be bothered with what they're going to think about me. I have to be authentic to myself, And once I'm authentic to myself, then if they don't resonate with that, that's fine. But one of the things that I have here is how to really rebuild trust so you can actually let go, because we talk about letting go, and how do we let go? It's really, really difficult. And so I've broken it down, and I'm really still diving into these three layers and assessing it for myself, and how do I fit into this. The first is self-trust. I mean, keeping promises to yourself. If you can keep promises to yourself, that is really key and important. And I'm doing that more and more, and I'm finding relief in that and comfort. Listening to your intuition again. We have that gut feeling. I've talked about that when I was, health as a health coach for a long time, and talking about that gut feeling and really going into that, because it's telling you something. There's something going on there where I ignored that, but now I understand what that really means. Discernment, not blind trust. So trust isn't naive, and it's about who and what earns, your access. There's got to be an access, that layer of when can people really access your trust. And then the third is surrendering to a bigger vision, whether it's faith, purpose, or alignment. One of the things I'm dealing with right now is really fighting and tug of warring with my faith. And that's something I've been going through really since 2018 is when that was rediscovered, and I came off of all my medications. And when my doctor told me, well, you have to be on medications for the rest of your life, when in fact that is not the case. And then the purpose, and then letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means trusting the process. So what is that process that you're putting into place for yourself to, have that new evolvement, that new journey of trust, and trying to discern what's really going on out there. So you don't rebuild trust by believing harder. You rebuild it by becoming someone who keeps their word to themselves. And I think that is a key point that I'm starting to learn as I'm going through these different areas here in trust and writing my article.
Yeah, those are such good points. And I think the main thing is really we have to trust ourselves.
Yeah.
We have to trust ourselves. We have to believe in ourselves, because that's what also we project to the outside world.
Right.
And it's like if an animal could sense that you're afraid of them, and you see it all the time with dogs, they'll harass you if they know that you're afraid of them. I think it's the same thing even with other human beings, that if we don't totally trust ourselves, I think the message goes out, then, well, why should I trust? Why should I trust that person? Or that person doesn't trust themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So why should I be trustworthy to them? I don't have to be
Exactly.
trustworthy to them, because they're already expecting that I won't be, and it won't come as a surprise, and their defenses will be down. So it's an interesting thing about trust and letting go, that we have to trust ourselves. We have to trust other people. And at the same time, people also have to show us that they can be
That's right.
trustworthy.
That's right.
So it's this double-edged sword, and it goes back and forth. And then what do we do if there's mistrust? How do we
Mm.
rebuild that trust? We have to then trust in someone. And when that happened with my website, I had to find somebody else. And I explained to the person what had gone on. And the person said, "Oh, that happens all the time." This person told me the person that I went to actually built a business
Mm.
because of everything that was going on. And the
Wow.
person said, "I'll keep you informed every step of the way." And I said, "That's what I need, is I need weekly updates as to how things are going. Even if you're doing nothing, send me a text saying that there's nothing going on this week." But it worked out well, but I also had to take the initiative to say to the person, I'm coming off a mistrust. So in order to trust you, this is what I need from you. Now, if the person would have said, well, I'm way too busy, I can't do that. You think I'm going to
Then you
give you
don't.
updates?
Yeah.
Then I wouldn't go with them. I would find somebody that would. But the person was willing to do it, was
Yeah.
willing to build trust, and did a beautiful job.
I was just gonna
So,
say, and your new guy did a great job. So
yeah.
kudos to him. Congratulations.
Yeah. And, trust, I think, makes the world go round. That I
Correct.
think even in all this chaos, we need to trust. And I'll go back to what I said in the beginning, that I think the world saw what trust really is. That when you have someone who's behind enemy lines, that's injured, and yet they have the trust that they are going to be taken care of. And
Right.
it's not only trust in their colleagues, it's trust in a higher power.
Hmm.
Because I think without that trust in a higher power, they may have given up or tried to do something that would have put them at risk because there
Yeah.
would have been fear there. And maybe they would have exposed themselves to something that they shouldn't have. But I think too that they had that trust in whatever they believed that higher power was, and it doesn't matter. That they knew, okay, if I just sit tight, I have trust and faith that it's all going to work out. And it did. Any last words from you about this?
Yeah. So to wrap up, I think that I would like to just really share for people to um, keep an open mind and go by your gut feeling. We are in some really trying times, and embrace what you can, and lead forward with your own true authenticity, which is something that I have been working on since 2018, coming to some sort of realization that I have a purpose and I've discovered that purpose, and want to encourage people to reach out to Teresa or reach out to myself or anybody from the Own It family, because there are a lot of us out there. As I said earlier, we want to provide tools and resources for those individuals who want to level up, who want to become their own CEOs, and who are a little bit afraid to become their own CEOs. And how do you do that? I didn't know how to do that until I said no to my doctor, saying I don't want to go on to another medication, and that was a reality check for me. So there is hope out there. There are people to trust. It's a matter of knowing, what to do, how to do it, and what to look for. So, thank you, Teresa, for today's episode. Always a pleasure to have you as host and be a guest with you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for coming on today and sharing this
Thank you.
conversation because I
Thank
think
you.
it's a much needed conversation. I think here at Own It, we like to dig deep and we
Correct.
don't sugarcoat it. We like to tell the truth. And for some of our subscribers, it may be good. For other people watching, they may think, oh, but then again, take what resonates with you out of out of our conversation and use it to your best advantage.
Correct.
So
Correct.
thank you everyone who joined us. And for those that will be watching the replay, thank you so much. And as
Thank you.
always, live the best life that you can.
I